This is the American Family Association at AFA Today.
And good Monday to you. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you at AFR Talk and AFA Today, back for a brand new week of important discussions as we take a look at what our leaders are doing or not doing, and I'm going to get into a lot more of that in the next little bit with Steve Dace. Stay with me. But first, I want to let you know that just around the corner here at AFR is Share-a-thon. And we want to know, have we motivated you in some way to get involved in the culture war? Have we helped you grow in your faith? Is there something about this radio network and station that has done something for you? We want to hear your story. Call us and share it. You might even hear yourself on the air, April 8th, 9th, 10th, to remind others what God is doing with AFR Talk. Here's how you get a hold of us, 800-326-4543. Push option 8, 800-326-4543, and that's how you take care of it. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you. My phone number, 888-589-8840. Started seeing something popping up on Facebook, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I didn't do anything about it. I just sat and watched and wanted to see if there, in fact, was going to be something done about it. And it turns out there wasn't. So I thought I would ask the instigator, the troublemaker, the man who delights in holding these people publicly accountable and sometimes embarrassingly so. He's known in some places as a kingmaker, particularly in the caucuses of Iowa. But he's heard on this radio network on a regular basis. Steve Dace, welcome back. So glad you're with us, brother.
Hey, Kev. How are you?
I'm good. So I'm reading your Facebook, as every intelligent consumer of news information should do. Steve Dace on Facebook. You should read the Facebook on a regular basis. And I saw this sort of, I don't know, shot across the bow, if you will, that you levied at the Rand Paul people. Take us behind the scenes, way back to where this story began, and bring us up to speed on what has happened.
Well, I don't want to be a child of Adam and blame the whole thing on a woman, Kevin, but it really started with my intrepid producer, Rebecca Maxwell. We were signing off our nighttime show last week, and we had discussed throughout a majority of the program a recent rash of federal judges who think they have the jurisdiction to overturn state marriage amendments. And if anybody knows anything about legal precedent in America, there's extremely rare, and then there's how many times a federal judge has tried to overturn a state constitutional amendment. It almost never has happened in the history of this republic. So we were discussing that issue, and of course the states where we've seen this are states now we're seeing this in the South, Kentucky, Virginia, just a couple of recent examples. And as we were signing off, I was getting ready to go home, and Rebecca, our producer, looks at us and says, "Hey, have we heard from Rand Paul and all about this whole situation in Kentucky? It's been 3 days." And then the light bulb went on over my head. So I started asking the right, or if you're, I guess, Team Rand, the wrong questions, and wasn't getting any answers, even though I was talking to Team Rand on a regular basis. So I just started updating my Facebook wall, which has, a small audience. I haven't transferred it to a public page yet, so I've got the maximum 5,000 friends, but a lot of them are key activists in early caucus and primary states like Iowa and South Carolina. So I knew I was going to reach the right people by posing this. And I just started doing a daily update, how many days it's been since Rand Paul has said anything about his state having 1.22 million of its own voters disenfranchised who voted to defend marriage. And this thing didn't pass, Kevin, by the slimmest of margins. It got 75% of the vote in Kentucky. All right.
So
Steve,
hold on
there's really
one
no
second.
excuse for this.
Steve, hold on 1 second. Brent, I need some technical help here. I'm hearing Steve cut out about every other sentence. Is that going out over the air that way, or is that just coming to me that way? Okay. Okay, we'll figure out how to, because I want to make sure I know the details on this, but you said a large margin, 1.2 million voters voted in support of it, and you've got to imagine that an overwhelming number of those people supported Senator Paul in his election bid, would you not?
I certainly would. And keep in mind that this has been an argument that we have been having within our own coalition for the last 5 or 6 years, which is this a federal issue? Should this be a state issue? And, the liberty movement that Ron and Rand Paul symbolize, they have always argued that marriage should be defined at the state level. Well, now here's an opportunity to prove that they mean that. You had Ted Cruz and Mike Lee the next day after the Kentucky ruling put forth a bill in the Senate that would essentially say the 10th Amendment still exists And I find it odd that the senator from Texas and the senator from Utah has been quicker on the trigger to defend voters in Kentucky than Rand Paul has. And to me, I think if you want to make the case to pro-family voters that you're not a sellout for believing that this is an issue that should be decided at the state level, well, then when it's being decided at the state level and not by the people, but by an unelected judge, and it's already in the state constitution, to me, you ought to be there showing that you really mean it, putting action steps on those proclamations, particularly because, Kevin, we have seen him since the Kentucky marriage ruling. He's had time to go to lunch with Eric Holder, who probably ought to be in prison. And he's had time to give a speech before the Kentucky State Legislature about restoring the voting rights of felons. So we want to have a speech about restoring the voting rights of felons, but nothing at all about maintaining the voting rights of the law-abiding who wanted to defend the oldest institution in human history. I find that a little bit odd. And then after 7 days, his people finally gave me a statement, which is a pretty good statement. But then I asked them immediately afterwards, how does he plan on following through with this? What are the action steps? I was told I would get a call Saturday, maybe today. So far, I have not gotten a call.
Well, and that's something that that is disturbing on every level, because the one thing that you don't want, especially as someone is preparing for a potential run for the White House, is to start playing loose around the edges on what they're going to stand for and what they're going to mean by that. Here's what I would like to suggest, and unless Mr. Dace has an objection to it, my strong feeling is that the people listening to me right now have a very vested interest in wanting to know if Rand Paul actually does support the states' rights position that he has said. If he does not support a federal amendment, it's kind of a backstop when states' rights get run over. And if he's at all committed to the marriage issue, shouldn't we be entitled to know what his position is on that? My number is 888-589-8840. I'd love to take your calls on that. But here's the other thing I want you to do. I would like you, no matter where you're listening in this nation, to pick up the phone and dial 202-221-2434, because the operator switchboard in Washington, D.C. can connect you directly to Senator Rand Paul's office. And when you get connected there, you need to ask the question of the person that answers, or if they want to transfer you to the policy expert within the office, you could ask that person. But ask very simply, very kindly, very cooperatively, very winsomely, if Senator Paul believes in protecting states' rights when it comes to the issue of marriage, why hasn't he spoken out when judges thwarted the rights of the people in his own state, in the state of Kentucky, on an issue that 1.2 million of them voted to determine? This is a very important, crucial moment for Rand Paul to be measured by, not just what he says that he means, but what his actions line up with. And so, again, let me give you that number, 202-224-3121. I gave you the wrong number earlier. It's 202-224-3121. 202 is the area code, 224-3121. When they answer, you say, I'd like to be connected to Senator Rand Paul's office, please. And then ask very politely, is it true that Rand Paul supports state rights as it pertains to the protection of traditional marriage in our society? If they say yes, then the next question you ask them is, then why will he not comment on what the Kentucky, what the federal judges have said about the voters of We the People in Kentucky? The voters of Kentucky, and this matters whether you live in Georgia, Washington, Florida, New York, etc. This matters because if you say you believe that marriage should be left to the determination of the states, and that each state has the right to determine its marriage laws, and this is not a position that's particularly bad, in my opinion. I strongly believe in states' rights. Some people have said they won't support the federal marriage amendment because they believe that the states' rights option hasn't been exhausted yet, and I kind of agree with some of those people that say that. But the bottom line is this. If you believe, and if you say you believe, that states have the right to determine, then by golly, when a federal judge comes in his tyrannical black robe and says we're gonna overturn this puppy, we're not going to let the will of the people stand, then at the very least, the people that have been touting states' rights need to be asked if they have an opinion about it, if they are going to make a statement about it, if they're going to respond to the tyranny that they supposedly believe in from the federal level. We're talking with Steve Deace. My name is Kevin McCullough. We're glad you're with us. The phone number to talk to us is 888-589-8840, and I'd really like to talk to you, and I know Steve would like to hear from you. Once you've called the senator's office at 202-224-3121 and pose those questions to the Rand Paul staff, will you defend your state's rights in the issue of marriage? And what do you think about the judges that have undone the will of the people in your state? 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Now, Steve, in the break, we're going to try to get my connection back to you connected a little bit better because I'm still having trouble comprehending everything that you've said. But I want to go back to this because, and I want to make sure that I'm clear in understanding your point. Rand Paul has taken the position to not support the federal marriage amendment movement because he's trying to be consistent with his supposed quote-unquote libertarian ideas, which is small government, let the states decide, and particularly the voters of the state. Is that correct?
It is correct. Frankly, I think it's an illogical position, which we can discuss that as well if you would like. But
sure.
For right now, he has his own position. I don't think it's too much to ask for a guy that clearly wants to be president, is going to Israel with Christians and pro-family voters, and is currently trying to curry favor with them to show that he's willing to at least act on his position, whether all of us agree with it or not.
And I think that's totally fair. Especially if you're going to court the vote of Christians, they have the right to know whether you're pulling the wool over their eyes or not. And I'm not saying any of this stuff because I necessarily believe that he is. I want to make sure. I want to make sure of what he's actually said and what he actually believes and what he actually will do. And what is discouraging about this is it seems as though as time has gone on, and you've had some discussions even with his campaign staff, that they're not even always telling you the truth.
Well, one of the things that they said to me I found disturbing, they told me that I was really the first person that brought this up to them. I have a hard time believing. No conservative activist in Kentucky, no pro-family activist in Kentucky said a word to their own senators, one of them who's running for president, about a federal judge trying to overturn their marriage amendment. Now, their argument is, well, he's just saying for now that we have to recognize so-called homosexual marriages from other states, and he hasn't totally decided if he's going to overturn it yet. First of all, I think that's a fallacy and a cop-out.
Well,
if the people of Kentucky,
and if that's the case, then what we really have got to do is force them to play accountable.
I mean, if the people of Kentucky, Kevin, wanted to recognize phony marriages from other states, they wouldn't have passed this amendment. I think clearly their intent is to not recognize within their borders something they don't, nor God believes is actually a marriage, clearly.
And because of our bad connection, you dropped down on the percentage by which it passed, but did you say 75%?
Actually 74.56% to be exact.
Yeah, so rounding up. So 3 out of 4 voters said, no, this is what we want our state to determine. We want marriage to be defined in our state this way. They went through the entire legislative process, and now the judges have said, no, you can't. That can't be your law. And this is a senator who wants to ask all of America to vote for him for president, that is saying, I believe that the states should be allowed to determine their own way forward on this. And now he won't say anything. He weighed in on something related to Ted Nugent last week, but not on the judge overturning his voters in his state. Something's wrong here, friends. 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Then call us here on AFR Talk at AFA Today. I'm Kevin McCullough.